My name is Naomi Carter. I'm 29 years old, and I work in commercial real estate development. My life has always been structured, not rigid, just deliberate. Early mornings, long meetings, gym after work, dinners that feel earned, not rushed, quiet nights where the silence isn't lonely, it's controlled. I've always believed that if you build your life carefully enough, things don't fall apart without warning. That belief lasted until Ethan. Ethan Walker is 27, social, effortlessly charming, the kind of man who doesn't walk into a room. He settles into it like he's always belonged there. We had been together a little over 2 years. When we met, he told me he admired how driven I was. That was his word. Driven. 6 months ago, that word changed. Quietly, subtly, driven became obsessed. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. It started with small things. The kind of things you almost dismiss because they don't feel big enough to challenge. A slight eye roll when I checked emails during dinner. Dinner he insisted on scheduling at 8:30 on a Tuesday, knowing I had an early meeting the next morning. A comment here and there. You're always thinking 5 steps ahead. You don't know how to just be in the moment. At first, I tried to adjust. I closed my laptop earlier. I pushed meetings. I carved out time that felt intentional. We still had date nights. We traveled. Montreal in the fall. I remember the way he looked at me across the table, candlelight reflecting in his eyes, telling me he loved how focused I was. But something underneath had already shifted. The night everything changed wasn't loud. It was quiet. I had built a projection. Nothing obsessive, just a clean breakdown of how we could afford a down payment on a condo within 18 months if we adjusted a few spending habits. I showed it to him after dinner. I remember the exact moment his expression changed. Not confusion, not curiosity. Cold. He didn't argue. He didn't question the numbers. He just went quiet. Not thoughtful quiet. Detached quiet. A week later, he told me he needed space. That was the phrase. I just need some space, Naomi. I asked him what that meant. A few days? A week? He said he didn't know. He just needed to breathe. He said I was too focused on the future, that he felt like he was competing with my 5-year plan. Competing. Like stability was something I was choosing over him. I remember looking at him and realizing something uncomfortable. He wasn't asking for space. He was asking for a reaction. Still, I nodded. Okay, I told him. If you need space, I'll give it to you. What he didn't understand was that I don't do half measures. If someone steps back from me, I don't hover. I don't wait in emotional limbo, hoping they'll return. I redirect. Completely. The first thing I did wasn't emotional. It was practical. We didn't live together officially, but he spent most nights at my place. He had a drawer in my dresser, shoes by the door, his cologne still sitting on the bathroom counter like it belonged there. I packed everything. Carefully, neatly, not out of anger, out of clarity. I sent him one message. Your things are packed. I can drop them off or leave them with the concierge. He replied 2 hours later. Wow, that was fast. I read it once. Then I typed back, I'm respecting what you asked for, keeping it clean for both of us. He didn't like that. I could feel it, even through the silence that followed. Over the next week, I didn't reach out. No, I miss you. No, are you okay? No late-night emotional paragraphs. I kept my routine exactly the same, except now I had more time. I closed a deal that had been dragging for months, the kind of deal that requires focus, not distraction. I went back to the gym consistently, not to cope, just because I could. I reconnected with 2 friends I hadn't seen in months. Meanwhile, I saw his activity. Not directly. I didn't watch his stories from my main account, but it's hard not to notice patterns when you know someone well. More nights out. More photos. Captions about living in the moment. About choosing peace. It was curated, transparent, and I didn't react. 10 days in, he texted me. Late Friday night. So you're just completely fine without me? I stared at the message longer than I expected, because that question told me everything. He didn't want space. He wanted reassurance. He wanted to feel like I was unsettled, like I was waiting, like I still revolved around him. I kept my reply simple. I'm respecting what you asked for. That's when everything shifted. After I sent that message, Ethan didn't respond for almost a full day. That silence felt different. Not distant, not indifferent. Calculated. Sunday afternoon, he called. I let it ring once before answering. Not as a tactic, just because I was at the gym, finishing a set, my hands still slightly shaking from the weight. Hey, I said, calm, steady. His tone was sharper than I expected. Are you seeing someone? No greeting, no build-up. Just that. I leaned back against the bench, grabbing my towel. No. A pause. Going out more? He asked. I've been keeping busy. He let out a short laugh. Not amused. Dismissive. Interesting. That word again. He used it when he wanted to criticize without committing to it. I didn't respond. He filled the silence. "It's just funny how quickly you adjusted," he said. "Almost like you were already checked out before I even asked for space." There it was. The shift. The accusation disguised as observation. I exhaled slowly. "I didn't check out. I respected what you asked for." "Yeah," he said, voice tightening. "But most people would at least try to fix things." I could feel where this was going. "You didn't fight for me, Naomi." The words landed, but not the way he expected. Not like a wound. More like confirmation. I straightened, my voice still even. "I don't chase people who step away from me." "That's not chasing," he snapped. "That's caring." "If you wanted to fix something," I said, "you could have said that. Instead, you asked for distance, so I gave it to you." Silence. Not cold this time. Measured. Then he said quieter, "It just feels like you didn't value me enough to even try." I closed my eyes for a second, letting that settle. Because that wasn't confusion. That was reframing. "You're not asking for effort," I said. "You're asking for a reaction." "That's not fair," he shot back immediately. "Then tell me what you actually wanted," I said. "Space? Or proof that I'd panic without you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pivoted, said I was being cold, that I overanalyze everything, that relationships aren't contracts you manage like deals. I listened, didn't interrupt, because what he was saying mattered less than how he was saying it. Defensive, deflecting. He didn't want clarity. He wanted control of the narrative. A few days later, I heard from a mutual friend. Not directly, casually. The kind of, "Hey, I didn't want to get involved, but," conversation. Apparently, Ethan had been telling people we were on a break, that I had become too obsessed with work, that I made him feel like an accessory to my career, that I was rigid, emotionally unavailable. I remember sitting there, phone still in my hand, rereading those words in my head. Accessory. As if I hadn't adjusted my schedule for his events. As if I hadn't supported his freelance projects. As if I hadn't paid for most of our trips without ever making it a point of tension. None of that matched reality. But I didn't correct it. Didn't defend myself. Didn't send clarifying messages or start quiet campaigns to fix my image. Because I understood something he didn't. When someone asks for space, they expect you to pause your life. To hover. To wait while they evaluate their options. I don't wait. Around week 3, something shifted. Not emotionally, structurally. One of my projects moved faster than expected. For months, I had been working with 2 partners on acquiring a mid-sized mixed-use building downtown. It wasn't flashy. Not the kind of thing that gets immediate attention online. But it was real. Solid. The kind of deal that changes your trajectory if you execute it right. I had started the due diligence long before Ethan ever asked for space. Back when we still talked about our future, like it was a shared plan. The seller accepted our offer on a Wednesday morning. No dramatic moment. No celebration. Just a call. Numbers confirmed. Terms agreed. I remember standing in my office, looking out the window, the city stretching below me, and thinking, this is what I was building. Not for validation. Not for attention. For stability. That night, instead of celebrating with him like I once imagined, I had dinner with my partners and a lender. We talked timelines, renovations, tenant restructuring. It felt grounded, adult, forward-moving in a way that didn't depend on anyone else's approval. 2 days later, photos from that dinner showed up online. Not from me. One of my partners tagged everyone at the table. The caption mentioned closing a major acquisition. I didn't think much of it until my phone buzzed. "Ethan, so you're buying buildings now, but couldn't give me more time?" I read it once. Then again. The second message came a minute later. Longer, more emotional. He said it hurt to see me thriving while we were in this weird in-between place. That it felt like I was replacing him with success. Like my career had always mattered more than he did. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, because that framing was deliberate. He was placing himself and my work on the same axis. As if growth was a betrayal. I typed slowly. My career was never the problem. I paused, then added, "The tension started when you decided my ambition was something you had to compete with." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Then his reply came. "Maybe I needed space to see if you'd fight for me." I stared at that sentence longer than anything else he had said, because there it was. Clear. Unfiltered. This had never been about breathing. It had been a test. A controlled withdrawal designed to provoke a reaction. To measure how much leverage he had. And in that moment, something in my mind settled. Not emotionally. Logically. I called him that evening. Not to argue. To confirm. He picked up quickly this time. "Hey," he said, tone softer now. I didn't mirror it. "I understand what you were doing," I said. A pause. "What do you mean?" The The space, I said. It wasn't about space. It was about seeing if I'd chase you. That's not... I don't participate in tests, Ethan. Silence. Then he exhaled sharply. You're twisting this. I'm clarifying it. He shifted again. Said everyone needs reassurance sometimes. That I was being dramatic. That a real man would have shown up. Refused to let him push me away. Real. That word again. I asked him one question. Direct. Do you actually want to be with someone building long-term stability? A pause. Or do you want someone who centers your emotions every hour of the day? He didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, he said I was cold. Calculated. That I cared more about assets than about him. That was enough. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't argue. I'm not interested in being evaluated through emotional traps, I said quietly. Another pause. Longer this time. I wish you well, Ethan. He let out a short laugh. Not amused. Dismissive. You'll cool off, he said. You always do. I didn't correct him. I'm done. You don't mean that. I didn't argue. I just said goodbye, and I hung up. For a second I sat there, phone still in my hand. Then I blocked his number. Not impulsively, methodically. Instagram, LinkedIn, everything. Not to punish him. To remove access. Because if someone uses distance as leverage, you remove the board entirely. Within an hour, he tried calling from a private number. I didn't answer. And for the first time since this started, I felt completely steady. The first 48 hours after I blocked Ethan were predictable, not chaotic, not dramatic. Predictable. He emailed me first. Subject line, really? 3 paragraphs underneath about how blocking was immature, how it proved I never cared, how adults communicate instead of disappearing. I read it once, then closed it. No reply. A few hours later, he sent a Venmo request. $1. The note read, guess this is my closure fee. I declined it, quietly. Not out of anger, out of disinterest. A mutual friend texted me that night. Hey, is everything okay? Ethan seems really upset. I kept my response simple. We wanted different things. I'm focusing on work. That was it. No explanation. No defense. Because there's a point where explaining yourself stops being clarity and starts being negotiation. And I wasn't negotiating my boundaries. 2 weeks passed. Not slowly. Productively. During those 2 weeks, I finalized renovation plans for the building. We negotiated with 2 commercial tenants. I started working with a financial advisor to restructure my investments. My days were full. Not as a distraction, as direction. Then something shifted, not privately, publicly. Ethan's online presence changed. At first, it was subtle. Then, it wasn't. The posts became louder. Rooftop bars, dim lighting, expensive drinks balanced carefully in his hand like props, VIP sections, captions about leveling up, about attracting abundance, about choosing environments that match your energy. On the surface, it looked elevated, but I knew him. I knew his habits, his income, his spending patterns. That lifestyle didn't match his reality. He wasn't dating someone wealthy. If he were, it would have been obvious. No, he was performing. And here's the part he didn't anticipate. While he was broadcasting a curated version of success, the deal I closed started gaining attention. Locally at first. A small business journal featured the acquisition. My name listed as one of the principals. I didn't post it, didn't tag it, didn't circulate it. But people saw it, including him. He didn't reach out immediately. Not directly. Instead, he started orbiting again. Digital, subtle, calculated. He unblocked me on Instagram. Liked one of my old photos. From months ago. Then another. Then he viewed a story my business partner posted. One I was tagged in. No message. No direct contact. Just visibility. The digital equivalent of standing in a doorway without knocking. I did nothing. A few days later, a mutual acquaintance sent me a screenshot. Ethan had posted a vague tweet. Something about men who think success replaces emotional intelligence. It was just specific enough that anyone who knew us could connect it. Still, I didn't respond. Because reacting would validate the narrative, and I wasn't interested in playing a role in something I had already stepped out of. What I did notice was the shift. Over the next week, the tone of his post changed. The VIP sections became less frequent, the captions less confident, more strained. One story mentioned burnout. Another hinted at stress. That caught my attention, because Ethan wasn't the burnout type. He liked comfort, expensive comfort. Then I heard something, not directly. Through someone in his industry. His company was restructuring. Budgets tightening. Contract roles under review. His position wasn't gone, but it wasn't stable either. It explained everything. When we were together, I covered a significant portion of our lifestyle. Trips, restaurants, the kind of spending he framed as living fully. I didn't resent it. I could afford it, but it meant he never had to calculate. Now, he was calculating. About a month after I blocked him, I saw him again. Not planned, not arranged. A networking event, public, industry mixer, the kind of place where people talk deals over drinks and pretend everything is effortless. He knew about it. We used to talk about these things. When I walked in, I saw him across the room almost immediately. He looked composed, put together, confident in that practiced way. But when our eyes met, he held eye contact just a second too long. I didn't approach him, didn't change direction, didn't acknowledge it beyond that single glance. I continued my conversation. 20 minutes passed. I noticed him moving, not directly toward me, circling, positioning, making sure I saw him laughing with someone, engaged, unbothered. It was intentional. Then, finally, he walked over, like we had just run into each other at a grocery store. "Hey," he said, casual, like nothing had happened. "Hey." My tone matched the environment. Polite, neutral, professional. He smiled, commented on the article about the acquisition, said he was proud of me. The way he said it felt rehearsed, measured, like he had practiced the exact balance between humility and familiarity. "Thank you," I said, and I left it there. That's when he shifted, subtly. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said. I nodded once. Didn't encourage, didn't interrupt. "Maybe I didn't handle things the best way," he continued. "The space, it wasn't about testing you. There was a pause. I think I was just scared. Scared. I felt like I was going to get left behind while you kept leveling up." There it was again. Leveling up, framing my growth as distance, as abandonment. I listened. Let him finish. He talked about how impressed he was with how quickly things had moved for me, how he realized he should have supported me instead of reacting emotionally. Then he asked, "If you ever thought about getting a bigger place once the renovations are done?" It wasn't subtle. Not really. I looked at him directly. "What do you want, Ethan?" No space for ambiguity. He hesitated. "Just for a second. I want to reconnect," he said. Slowly. No pressure. Just see where things go. I nodded slightly. Then I asked him one question. If the deal hadn't gone through, a pause. If I was still in the exact same position I was a month ago, would you be standing here right now? Silence. Not long. But long enough? His eyes shifted, just slightly. "That's not fair," he said. That was my answer. I smiled. Not cold. Not warm. Clear. "I wish you well," I said. His expression changed immediately. The softness dropped, replaced by something sharper. "Wow," he said. "You really think you're better than me now?" I shook my head once. No. A beat. I just learned. And I walked away. I expected that to be the end of it. It wasn't. 3 days after the networking event, my phone rang. It was Daniel, one of the few mutual friends who never took sides, just observed quietly and spoke when it mattered. "Hey," he said, tone careful. "I thought you should know. Ethan's been talking." I leaned back in my chair, already knowing the direction of that sentence. "About what?" A pause. "He's telling people you led him on at the event, that you gave him mixed signals, that you made it seem like you wanted to try again, and then shut him down out of nowhere." I closed my eyes for a second. Not out of frustration, out of recognition. When someone loses access, I said quietly, they try to regain control of the narrative. Daniel exhaled. "Yeah, the thing is, it's not really working." That caught my attention. "At least 4 people were standing near you when he came over," he continued. "They heard the conversation, or enough of it. They said you were calm, distant, professional. You didn't even step away from the group." I didn't say anything, because that's the part people underestimate. Public environments come with witnesses, and witnesses don't align with rewritten stories. That's not even the bigger issue," Daniel added. I waited. His company officially announced layoffs this week. There it was, the piece that made everything else make sense. "Marketing and contract roles were hit hard," he continued. "He's not out, but his hours got cut, significantly." I nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see me. "I figured," I said, because I had already seen the shift. The posts, the tone, the quiet unraveling disguised as curated confidence. Within the same week, Ethan posted a story. Something about how people only value you when you're convenient to their success. It wasn't subtle. It didn't need to be. He was trying to pull the narrative back into a shape that favored him. Make himself the one who was overlooked, left behind. But reality doesn't bend just because someone needs it to. A few days later, he emailed me again. Different tone this time. No sarcasm, no passive aggression. Just calm. I've been thinking a lot, it started. I know I handled things poorly. I think I let my insecurities get the best of me. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. I read it without reacting. I'm not asking for anything complicated, just coffee, a conversation, closure at least. I stared at the screen for about 30 seconds, not weighing options, not reconsidering, just acknowledging the moment. Then I deleted it, because closure doesn't require reopening doors. And I wasn't standing in the same place anymore. 6 weeks after he asked for space, I closed on the building, officially. Friday morning. Documents signed, funds transferred, keys handed over, no applause, no dramatic moment, just paper, ink, and responsibility. But it was real. That evening, my partners and I hosted a small dinner, nothing extravagant. A reserved section at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the part of the city where the property sat. The skyline was steady, lights stretching across the horizon like something earned, not borrowed. I remember standing there for a moment, glass in hand, listening to quiet conversations about timelines, tenants, long-term plans. No noise, no performance, just progress. Someone took a photo, tagged me. I didn't think much of it. Until the next morning. 3 separate messages, different people, same question. Is Ethan okay? Apparently the night before, around the same time that photo was posted, he had uploaded a series of stories about betrayal, about men who upgrade and forget who stood by them. The timing wasn't subtle. It didn't need to be. But here's the truth. He didn't stand by me. He stepped back, not to breathe, to test. He criticized my focus, framed my ambition as emotional absence, created distance to measure whether I would collapse into it. And when I didn't, when things grew without him, he wanted back in. That's not partnership. That's proximity to momentum. I never responded to his last email. I never unblocked him. I never attended another event where I knew he would be, just to make a point. I didn't need to, because this was never about proving something to him. It was about removing something from myself. The need to be understood by someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. Months later, Daniel told me Ethan had to move back in with his parents. Temporary, he said, because his hours got cut again. I didn't celebrate that. I didn't feel satisfaction. Just distance, because someone struggling isn't something I enjoy. But it's also not something I take responsibility for. If you tell someone they're too focused on building a future, you have to accept that they might build it without you. Now I sit in an office inside a building I partially own, renovated, structured, stable. The kind of space I used to describe to him when we talked about someday. The view is clear from here. Clearer than it's ever been. He wanted space. I gave it to him. And I used mine wisely.